Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly is in as President Trump's new chief of staff. A stunning announcement made via Twitter. Thumbs down, a dramatic late-night move by the maverick John McCain, bucking the president and siding with the Democrats to keep Obamacare alive. What happens next? A new missile launched by North Korea, and experts fear this one had the range to be able to hit major U.S. cities, including L.A., Denver, and Chicago. Kicking the habit, new moves by the feds, how they're trying to make everything from cigarettes to vaping less addictive. And close encounters, the new warnings at some of the busiest beaches in America. Nightly News begins right now.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We begin here tonight with breaking news. The power struggle in the West Wing of the White House has claimed another casualty. President Trump announced by Twitter late today he is replacing Chief of Staff Reince Priebus with Homeland Security Secretary General John Kelly. Priebus's exit after 6 months on the job comes a day after he was excoriated by new White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci, and just a week after Sean Spicer's abrupt resignation as press secretary. Our Kristen Welker is at the White House with late details on today's shakeup.
Tonight, a major staff shakeup in the embattled West Wing. Chief of Staff Reince Priebus is out. President Trump announcing his new pick in a tweet. I am pleased to inform you that I have just named General Secretary John F. Kelly as White House Chief of Staff. Kelly had served as Mr. Trump's Secretary of Homeland Security. The president spoke about the big changes moments after returning to Washington after a trip to New York.
Reince is a good man. John Kelly will do a fantastic job. General Kelly has been a star, done an incredible job thus far, respected by everybody. A great, great American.
A source close to Priebus says he privately offered his resignation yesterday after the new communications director, Anthony Scaramucci, launched a profanity-laced tirade against him in The New Yorker. What led to the ouster? Sources inside the White House say the president has been frustrated with Priebus's perceived lack of leadership for months, and having put him in charge of health care, last night's defeat was the final straw.
The motion to commit is not agreed to.
Secretary Kelly is widely seen as a stabilizing force, a 45-year Marine veteran who has carried out Mr. Trump's tough-on-crime and immigration policies as the leader of Homeland Security, and like his boss, wants to crack down on leaks.
I think it's darn close to treason.
At his event in New York today, the focus was gang violence, but the president also sang Kelly's praises.
Truly one of our stars. John Kelly is one of our great stars.
In a statement tonight, Priebus thanked the president for what he called one of the greatest honors of my life. According to a White House official, Kelly starts his new role on Monday. The move has been in the works for about 2 weeks. Priebus becomes the shortest-serving White House chief of staff ever. Lester.
All right, Kristen Welker, thank you. Let's bring in our political director, the moderator of Meet the Press. Chuck, we're watching some serious issues. Our next story about North Korea while all this drama is playing out in the White House with its attached distractions. What happens now here? What faction won, and where does that take the administration?
Well, look, today actually could be a day, the start of a series of potentially good days. I mean, look, it was an untenable situation when you had this new communications director in open warfare with two of the president's closest advisors, the chief of staff, Reince Priebus, who's now out, and the chief strategist, Steve Bannon. Look, we'll find out if he can bring order. If everybody in the president's orbit, Lester, I would say John Kelly was probably the best candidate he could have picked to be chief of staff. But he can only be successful if, number one, the president gives him some authority, at least on staffing. And number two, if there is an acknowledgement of where things get started and where they end. Are people going to be able to do end runs around the chief of staff? This one like they did before? I imagine that somebody who has worn the uniform is going to be harder to end run than a guy like Reince Priebus. So we'll see. But ultimately, it's about what authority does this president give his new chief of staff.
And I know you'll have more on Meet the Press on Sunday. Chuck, thank you. Let's go to that other major story I mentioned a moment ago. We're following North Korea fired off another intercontinental missile late today, one that some experts are warning was capable of reaching several major American cities. As it was, the missile splashed down off the coast of Japan, where that country's prime minister describes the launch as a serious and real threat. Tonight, the pace of North Korea's progress toward developing a long-range nuclear-armed missile is the cause of grave concern in Washington as well. Our Andrea Mitchell has the very latest.
In the wake of a successful launch 3 weeks ago, North Korea today firing a second long-range missile. The missile aloft for around 45 minutes, 2,300 miles up, and landing in the waters off Japan about 620 miles from its launch. The alarming advance, if shot toward the U.S., could likely reach not only the U.S. West Coast, but some experts say even Denver or Chicago. A serious challenge to President Trump.
This ought to get his attention that the North is not interested in doing something diplomatically. They want to have a nuclear weapons capability which can threaten the United States.
The Pentagon has been firing missile defense tests from Alaska, but they are not foolproof. And Kim Jong-un's nuclear team is making alarming progress on the next critical step, producing a nuclear warhead small enough to be mounted on an ICBM and withstand the heat of re-entry into the atmosphere. But a recent defense intelligence analysis said they could conquer that challenge as soon as next year.
What's really missing here, Andrea, is an entire team in a Trump administration that is focused on solving this problem, using all of the tools in our toolbox, military, diplomatic, intelligence, cyber, Treasury sanctions.
And tonight, in a show of force, the U.S. and South Korea have staged a joint ballistic missile test in response. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Joe Dunford, called his South Korean counterpart to discuss military options. And just now, the president has released a statement saying the United States will take all necessary steps to ensure the security of the American homeland and protect our allies in the region. Lester?
Andrea Mitchell with that late-breaking information. Thank you. Now to the defeat for Senate Republicans and their last-ditch effort to repeal parts of Obamacare. As the marathon session stretched late into the night, Senator John McCain shocked his colleagues by casting a deciding no vote, provoking gasps in the chamber. NBC Capitol Hill correspondent Casey Hunt was up all night watching it and explains how it all went down.
After 7 years of fighting, the Republican promise to repeal Obamacare is broken. Senator John McCain stunned his president and his party overnight, stepping up and voting no. To gasps in the Senate chamber, the so-called skinny repeal bill failed 49 to 51. Two other Republicans also voting no.
This is, clearly a disappointing moment.
In the critical moments before the vote, the vice president on the floor pleading his case. The president calling McCain on his cell phone. But it wasn't enough to cut the deal.
They should have approved health care last night, but you can't have everything. Boy, oh boy. They've been working on that one for 7 years. Can you believe that?
Democrats today hailing McCain as a hero.
How we doing?
Insisting they want to work with Republicans. But there's no clear path forward. Republican leader Mitch McConnell not saying what he'll do next.
The administration is already hastening the collapse of Obamacare. They've shortened the enrollment period. They've cut outreach to encourage people to sign up.
Does President Trump understand health care policy?
I haven't talked to him at length on health care policy, but my Republican colleagues who do say he doesn't understand it very well.
The Republicans who bucked their party now have to answer to voters.
Susan Collins is looking out for not just her party, but like her people in Maine.
There's no sense in stabbing each other in the back, and that's what they're doing with Mr. Trump now.
With insurance markets struggling and premiums rising, Americans are still wondering if Washington can do anything to help. There are already conversations going on between some Republicans and Democrats about how to at least stabilize the insurance exchanges. But with Congress headed out on August recess for most of the month, it's unlikely that this is going to come back up anytime soon. Lester.
All right, Casey Hunt at the Capitol tonight. Thank you. Russia is retaliating against the U.S. for the new sanctions passed by Congress over the Kremlin's meddling in the 2016 election. While President Trump has yet to say whether he will sign or veto those sanctions, Moscow has already responded by seizing U.S. diplomatic properties. NBC's chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel has more.
From above, it hardly looks like the kind of place to be at the center of a diplomatic row between Washington and the Kremlin. But the Russian government said today it's seizing this unassuming retreat for American diplomats and a storage facility the embassy uses. The American country house outside Moscow is now gated shut, and over the next month and a half, Russia says it will be sending hundreds of Americans home, putting a cap on the number of Americans who can serve in this country at 455, the exact number of Russian diplomats who serve in the U.S. It's Russia's punishment for sanctions passed overwhelmingly by Congress.
The United States of America needs to send a strong message to Vladimir Putin and any other aggressor that we will not tolerate attacks on our democracy.
It's also a delayed retaliation for similar seizures and expulsions by President Obama last year, his response to Russia's election meddling. Back then, on the eve of President Trump's inauguration, Putin didn't respond. But now, Russian officials like Andrei Klimov from Russia's Foreign Relations Committee increasingly call President Trump weak and ineffective.
It seems to me personally from time to time that he is really prisoner of the White House.
The U.S. Embassy in Moscow said it's been informed about the loss of its house and the personnel cap and has registered its complaint. Richard Engel, NBC News, Moscow.
Tonight, new moves from federal health officials in the battle to get more people to kick the habit. And step one is a path to make tobacco products less addictive by cutting the nicotine. NBC's Kristen Dahlgren tells us more.
Calling it the leading cause of preventable disease and death.
Cigarettes are the only legal consumer product that, when used as indicated, will kill half of all term users.
The FDA announcing a major regulatory shift. Its first priority, lowering nicotine in tobacco products. Also the role of flavored products like menthol cigarettes in attracting young smokers, as well as cigars and e-cigarettes. Ashley Wiskovich has been smoking for 6 years.
If I wasn't addicted to nicotine, if I wasn't addicted to cigarettes, then I would have no problem quitting.
The CDC estimates more than 36 million Americans smoke. More than 3,200 kids under 18 start each day. Smoking leads to 480,000 deaths each year.
Thank you for calling the Colorado Quit Line.
At National Jewish Health in Denver, Hillary Baca runs a smoking cessation quit line that covers 16 states. They receive up to 30,000 calls a month.
On average, people take 7 and 8 different quit attempts in order to be able to successfully quit.
Altria and Reynolds American issuing statements, both endorsing the idea of a plan to regulate tobacco and nicotine. The FDA's goal, they say, to reach a day where the most harmful products are no longer capable of addicting our kids. Kristen Dahlgren, NBC News, New York.
Still to come here tonight, shark warning, why record numbers of great whites are suddenly being spotted off of some of America's most popular beaches, causing some dangerously close encounters.
Needles. Essential for him, but maybe not for people with rheumatoid arthritis, because there are options, like an unjection. Xeljanz XR, a once-daily pill for adults with moderate to severe RA for whom methotrexate did not work well. Xeljanz XR can reduce pain, swelling, and joint damage, even without methotrexate. Xeljanz XR can lower your ability to fight infections, including tuberculosis. Serious, sometimes fatal infections, lymphoma, and other cancers have happened. Don't start Xeljanz XR if you have an infection. Tears in the stomach or intestines, low blood cell counts, and higher liver tests and cholesterol levels have happened. Your doctor should perform blood tests before you start and while taking Xeljanz XR and monitor certain liver tests. Tell your doctor if you are in a region where fungal infections are common, and if you have had TB, hepatitis B or C, or are prone to infections. Needles. Fine for some, but for you, 1 pill a day may provide symptom relief. Ask your doctor about Xeljanz XR, an injection.
I make it easy to save $600 on car insurance, so being cool comes naturally. I can't decide if this place is swag or bling.
It's pretzels.
Word. Ladies, you know when you switch, you get my Bomb Diggity discounts automatically. No duh, right?
Sir, you forgot.
Keep it. You're gonna need it when I make it precipitate.
What? Salonpas. We're the world leader in medicinal pain patches.
Our latest innovation, Salonpas Lidocaine, using hydrogel-based technology with the maximum strength lidocaine
you can buy without a prescription.
Salonpas Lidocaine. Nothing is proven stronger or more effective against pain.
Next week, Rawson Reports is keeping you safe. A first ever look at how new technology is keeping us safer on the rails.
This can be a game changer and save lives.
Plus, new apps to protect you from severe weather and the